Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today, let us talk about the story of Miraj. Basically, it is known as Al-Isra wal Miraj, popularly known as a combination of two events where one is an earthly journey from Mecca to Jerusalem and the other one is about the ascension to heaven by the Prophet Muhammad. But to understand the proper meaning of the story, we have to see them as a single incident, not as a separate events. In reality, this is related to the journey of light from the core to the outermost layer of the sun. It is a story of light and the structure of the sun. Already I have shown in the previous presentation Miraj, the story of light, that Burak represents an electromagnetic spectrum. Today, let us understand more details related to light and sun with those details. The position of the seven heavens represent the different layers of the sun, and the prophets residing in them represents the characteristics of those layers. Before discussing this in detail, let us know the different layers of the sun and some of their characteristic features first. As you can see in the picture, the core, radiative zone, tachocline, convection zone, photosphere, chromosphere, transition region, and corona are the different layers of the sun, where the last three zones are collectively called the atmosphere. In total, there are 5 internal layers up to the visible surface. The innermost layer of the sun is called core, where the temperature is 15 million degree Kelvin due to the fusion of hydrogen into helium. During this process, gamma rays and neutrinos are released. Next layer is called radiative zone, in which energy transfer occurs by means of radiation. The boundary region between the radiative and convection zone is called tachocline. The fourth layer is called convection zone, in which energy transfer occurs by means of convection. The next layer is the surface of the sun, which is called the photosphere, which is cooler than the other layers with an effective temperature of 5504 degrees Celsius and composed of granules on the surface. Another important feature that can be seen on the photosphere is sunspots, which appear black in color. Chromosphere and corona are the important layers of the sun's atmosphere. The chromosphere is visible as a colored flash at the beginning and end of total eclipses. The outermost atmospheric layer, corona, is having an average temperature of 1 to 2 million Kelvin. Coronal prominences and solar flares are the prominent features of corona. Basically, the sun is a ball of hot plasma mainly composed of hydrogen and helium along with few other elements which are in the plasma state. These details of the sun are obtained by the indirect studies, as we cannot physically examine the sun as it is very hot. But the Creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has conveyed these details through Prophet Muhammad in the form of these events. As a common belief, all humans think heaven lies somewhere above. Therefore, whenever it mentions heaven in the story, we have to think of the higher level. And moreover, it is also mentioned that they are ascending. Therefore, without doubt, it is an upward movement. Here, the core, the sun, is mentioned as the earth. This is the place where the light in the form of gamma rays originate. It is mentioned in a hadith that when the Prophet Muhammad was at Mecca, so Gabriel came to him and opened his chest and washed the heart, and then faith, wisdom and knowledge are put into it, then closed his chest. This is all about implanting of charges and signatures into the photons, the light particles. Then Gabriel took Muhammad to Jerusalem and Burak. This suggests that after the incorporation of signatures into photon, it will be made as electromagnetic spectrum, and then it travels to a particular point of ascension in the core from where it can rise to the upper layers. When they reached to Jerusalem, Gabriel tied the Burak to walls of the Masjid al-Aqsa, indicate that at the designated place the neutrinos tie themselves to the rising plume with the help of the magnetic bond. From here, they ascend to the upper layers, so which are mentioned as heavens. Here, Gabriel represents the neutrinos and Muhammad represents the photons, which are light energy particles. These are the particles released during the fusion of hydrogen into helium in the core. The first heaven is occupied by the Prophet Adam. As mentioned in the previous presentation, the Adam represents the gamma rays. Therefore, the core should be represented by Adam as it is the origin place of gamma rays. But it is mentioned that when they ascend from earth to the first heaven, they met Adam. This indicates that there are two divisions in the core. Therefore, it can be divided into inner core, which is the origin place of gamma rays and mentioned as the earth, and the next is the outer core, which is mentioned as the first heaven. When the Prophet Muhammad and Gabriel reached the first heaven, Gabriel said to the heaven's gatekeeper to open the gate. The gatekeeper asked, "Who is it?" He said, "Gabriel." The gatekeeper asked, "Who is accompanying you?" Gabriel said, "Muhammad." The gatekeeper said, "Has he been called?" Gabriel said, "Yes." Then it was said, "He is welcomed. What a wonderful visit his is." This indicates that at the boundary of the layers, only the neutrinos can interact with each other and make way, not the photons. Then Prophet Muhammad met Adam and greeted him, and Adam said, "You are welcomed, O son and prophet." This suggests that the photons will interact with the matter of this layer and then released. It is mentioned in a hadith in Muslim volume 1, chapter 74, number 263 that on seeing left and right, the Prophet Adam was weeping and laughing by looking at his offsprings who are sitting on his left and right. On an inquiry, Gabriel said that by seeing the people on his left, he weeps because they are the dwellers of the hell, and by seeing on his right, he laughs as they are the dwellers of the heaven. This indicates that half of the gamma rays will escape to the surface and the other half will be sent to the center of the core of the sun. All this information suggests that the Adam represents the outer core and gamma rays. Next, they ascended to the second heaven, and again the same questions and answers were exchanged between Gabriel and the gatekeeper. On the second heaven, the Prophet Muhammad met Jesus and Yahya. There was a mutual interaction between Muhammad and Jesus, indicating there is a mutual interaction between the photon and the matter of this layer. It is mentioned in a hadith, Tirmidhi, volume 5, chapter 17, number 3130, and Bukhari, volume 4, book 55, number 607 and 647, that the Jesus' face is red in color as if he had just come out of the bathroom. As we all know, when a person comes out of the bathroom immediately after taking hot water bath, the face will radiate more heat. This suggests that Jesus represents the radiative zone, and the process involved here is the radiation as it is compared with the Jesus radiating red face. On further ascension, same questions and answers were exchanged between Gabriel and the gatekeepers at third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh heavens, indicate that there are these many number of boundaries exist in the sun. From this, we can infer that sun is having 7 inner layers up to the surface, excluding the inner core. At each of these heavens, Muhammad greeted the Joseph, Idris, Harun, Musa, and Abraham respectively, and each one of them greeted back to Muhammad, indicating that there is a mutual interaction between the photons and the matter of those layers. Other than mentioning the occupancy of the prophets, no other further details are available related to the third, fourth, and fifth heavens in the popular hadiths. I request to provide further details if someone is having more information related to this. On the sixth heaven, after interacting with Muhammad, Prophet Musa started weeping, and on being asked why he was weeping, he said, I quote, "Followers of this youth who was sent after me will enter paradise in greater number than my followers," unquote. The act of weeping suggests that here Musa represents the UV rays. As we all know, UV rays are harmful to eyes and bring tears in eyes and even damage retina. The statement, "Followers of this youth who was sent after me will enter paradise in greater number than my followers," confirms that the visible light, which is represented by Muhammad, comes after UV rays and reaches the sun's surface in greater number than UV rays. Here, it also indicates that majority of the UV rays are trapped in this layer. After interacting with Abraham in the seventh heaven, Muhammad was taken to a place called the Baitul Ma'mur on the surface of the seventh heaven. Gabriel said, "At Baitul Ma'mur, 70,000 angels perform prayer daily, and when they leave, they never return to it." This indicates that the sunspots are mentioned as Baitul Ma'mur, and these many number of new neutrinos leave the surface every day, and it will not return to the sun again. Then Muhammad was shown the Sidratul Muntaha, whose fruits are compared with clay jugs and leaves with elephant ears. Here, the solar flares are mentioned as Sidratul Muntaha. Popularly, the Sidratul Muntaha is called as Lot 3. In a hadith, Bukhari, volume 4, book 54, number 474, a massive solar flares called the super flares are mentioned as a huge tree in paradise, where a rider under its shadow would not be able to cross it even in 100 years. This indicates that the seventh heaven is the photosphere, as it mentions about the sunspots and solar flares in this layer. All this information confirms that there are 8 internal layers in the sun up to the surface. At the roots of the Sidratul Muntaha, Prophet Muhammad saw 4 rivers, and it was told to him that out of those 4, 2 flows on the earth and the other 2 invisible rivers flow in the paradise. The word invisible rivers may suggest that these may be the thermal bands or gravity and magnetic waves which flow in the paradise that are upper layers of the sun's atmosphere. The remaining 2 visible rivers, which are mentioned as Nile and Euphrates, may represent the shortwave and longwave bands of the electromagnetic spectrum, as the Prophet Muhammad represents the visible spectra and the earth means the inner core. Later, at Sidratul Muntaha, Muhammad was enjoined with 50 prayers per day by the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when he returned to Musa on his descent, Musa advises Muhammad to return to Allah and pray for reduction in the number of prayers. Then Muhammad went back to Allah and requested for reduction, and then Allah reduced it by 10, making it 40 prayers a day. Similarly, Muhammad made several return journeys on the advice of Musa, and on every journey, Allah has reduced it by 10. Finally, it was made 5 prayers a day. This suggests 2 processes. One, there is a convection occurs in the 7th layer of the sun, and the other one is the reduction of the width of the visible light spectral bands in the 8th layer, as the number of prayers represents the dispersion spectral bands of visible light as mentioned in part 1. The 5 prayers represent the spectral range between 0.3 micron and 0.8 micron, which is divided into 5 divisions, each one with a 10 subdivisions equaling to 50 divisions. This indicates that in the beginning, the width of the visible light spectral band would be 50 micron, which is finally reduced to 5 microns in the steps of 10 micron by cyclic processes occurring between 7th and 8th layer. Then Gabriel took Muhammad to a place where spectacular colors were seen by them, representing the chromosphere. A hadith in Bukhari, volume 1, book 8, number 345 states that then the Prophet Muhammad was admitted to the paradise, indicates that this is the uppermost layer of the sun, the corona. Here he found small tents made up of hollow pearls. It is mentioned in other hadiths that the height and width of these tents were 60 miles each, and the ground emits the fragrance similar to musk. Here, the hollow tents represent the solar prominences as they appear like tents, and compared with pearls as they are brighter. It is also mentioned that the families living at the corners of these tents will not see each other, indicate that the visibility is less in this layer. From this photosphere, the photons will escape to the solar atmosphere and become solar radiation and reaches the earth as sunlight. Therefore, this is the origin place of electromagnetic spectrum, and this is the reason why Gabriel mentions, "This is your father, greet him," while introducing Adam and Abraham. This is how the science was taught to the past generations, as they were scientifically not as advanced as today's generation. Let me tell you one thing here. The hadiths are the supplementary knowledge for Quran. The scientists are studying the internal structure of the sun by sending solar probes and employing various new techniques by spending huge amounts of money, but still struggling to understand it. But the Creator Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has explained the structure and processes involved in the sun through this event, Al-Isra wal Miraj. Furthermore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has practically shown these structures and processes by creating the earth in such a way that it replicates the internal structure of the sun and the processes operating inside and outside of the sun. Here, in this picture, the internal layers of the earth and the sun are compared. As we all know, there is convection in the Earth's asthenosphere and radiation in the lower mantle, similar to the seventh layer and the third layer of the sun, respectively. At the lower portion of the Earth's mantle, near the outer core, there exists a transition boundary called D prime layer. As we have seen earlier, the second heaven is occupied by two prophets, Jesus and Yahya, indicating that there exists a similar transition zone in the sun as well, immediately after the outer core. This is the reason why two prophets are mentioned on second heaven. In a hadith, Bukhari, volume 9, book 93, number 608, it is mentioned that the Prophet Muhammad saw two flowing rivers while he was in the nearest sky. He asked, I quote, "What are these two rivers, O Gabriel?" unquote. Gabriel said, "These are the sources of the Nile and the Euphrates," indicating that these may be the rivers of photons of the short and long wave radiation. When Gabriel took him around on that heaven, where he saw another river, at the bank of which there was a palace built of pearls and emerald, he asked, "What is this, O Gabriel?" Gabriel said, "This is the Kausar which your Lord has kept for you." These two statements suggest that the outer core of the sun is also a liquid layer like the outer core of the earth. Here, the mention of rivers signifies that there is a movement in this layer, maybe like the convection current movement in the outer core of the earth. As we all know, the outer core of the earth is liquid layer where the convection current movement is responsible for the magnetic field of the earth. Granules and sunspots occur on the photosphere of the sun. Similarly, the outermost layer of the earth is composed of number of continental and oceanic plates which are occupied by the land and oceans, representing the granules and sunspots respectively. The sunspots are cooler than the surrounding areas. Similarly, the oceans are cooler than the land area. The solar atmosphere is called as the paradise. Here, in this picture, the atmospheric layers of the earth and sun are compared. As we have seen earlier, the temperature in Corona is high, measuring to millions of degrees, which is comparable to the thermosphere of the Earth's atmosphere, where the temperature is high. It is understood that the temperature increase in corona is facilitated by the ionization of helium in the transition region, which is similar to the existence of ionosphere in the Earth's atmosphere, where many ions are present. The repeated journey by the Prophet Muhammad to Sidratul Muntaha, which is up to the chromosphere and the advice of Musa, indicates that there is a convection in the sun's atmosphere. This is similar to the convection noticed in the Earth's atmospheric layer troposphere, which causes the seasonal changes on the Earth. As there is rain, wind and storms on Earth, there is rain of plasma, solar wind and solar storms exist on the surface of the Sun. The lower atmospheric layer of Sun, the chromosphere, is colorful and comprising spicules and filaments which are comparable to the Earth's biosphere, which is extremely colorful and consists of trees and organisms. Also, the lower part in the chromosphere, called temperature minimum region, which is close to the photosphere, is the coolest layer, so which is similar to the tropopause layer, which is cooler than the stratosphere. The Indian and Israeli scriptures also contain the same information and are shown in the following slides. Here, the Indian and Israeli names of the internal layers and the atmospheric layers of the Sun are shown. In Indian scriptures, the first heaven is mentioned as the Rasatala, where Ras or Rasa means juice. This also indicates that the outer core is a liquid layer as mentioned earlier. In the Indian scriptures, the layers are mentioned from top to bottom and described as layers of Patala, where Patala denotes subterranean world. This is related to the fusion reaction, and I will provide more details related to this in one of the future presentations, inshallah. If you carefully observe, the fourth and the fifth layers are missing in the scientific divisions of the Sun's internal layers and atmospheric layers, whereas they are present in all the scriptures without fail. This demands the reclassification of the scientific divisions of the Sun's internal and external layers. I hope the scientists will consider this scientific knowledge provided by the Creator himself at the earliest and reclassify the divisions. The composition of the Sun's atmosphere is also comparable to the Earth's atmosphere. Sun's atmosphere contains about 73% of hydrogen and 25% helium. Similarly, Earth's atmosphere contains 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. Also, the Earth's surface is covered by approximately 72% water and 28% land. All these information shows that all the scriptures of the world are the revelations of the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the lone creator of the universe, and there is only one religion exists in the world from the beginning, that is Islam. The life of the humans on the earth is an enactment of the life of the photons, and whatever rules applies to the photons are also applied to the humans. The core of the sun contains enormous amounts of photons, and only those photons which submit to Allah and follow His rules will reach the paradise, the atmosphere of the sun. Therefore, I request everyone to submit to Allah and follow the rules laid down by Him and attain the Jannah, the paradise. Peace be upon all of these prophets, and all praises to Allah alone. This is one more supportive evidence for my quote: the religion is not different than science, and science is not different than religion. They go hand in hand and they are intertwined. I request the science and religious scholars to contribute for the development of the science and religion by joining hands with me to extract the hidden scientific knowledge existing in the religious scriptures for the better understanding of the creation. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.